This mirror, the glass, was a gift from George L. Hale's father. George Hale was the founder of this observatory. It was a gift from his father to him in 1893. And the mirror wasn't completed until 1908. It sat idle in Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin for a number of years. Hale founded that observatory. He realized that it was too cold, too foggy, and just too miserable in Wisconsin to do anything with astronomy. So he came to California in 1903, hiked up Wilson's Peak, which is what it was called then, took a little telescope and get an idea of how good the conditions were here, and decided this is where he wanted to found his next observatory. So in 1904, with the help of a guy named Andrew Carnegie, who was the richest man in the world at the time, he founded the Mount Wilson Observatory. And Andrew Carnegie put in millions of dollars to build this dome, 100-inch dome, solar towers, and everything. And the Carnegie Institution of Washington, D.C. still owns all of these assets here. I work for the Mount Wilson Institute that just manages this for Carnegie. Carnegie has nothing to do with this anymore. All their money is going to South America, Chile, the big telescopes down there. So basically, we run the show here at Mount Wilson. George Hale built this telescope in 1908. It was the largest in the world. He invited Andrew Carnegie out to look through his telescope. Carnegie came here in the winter of 1908 and got caught in a whiteout for 2 days. He never had a chance to look through his telescope, left and never came back. This telescope stayed the largest in the world until 1917 when the 100-inch came online. And then, before he died in 1938, George L. Hale set the wheels in motion for his next observatory called Mount Palomar. He's the founder of the Palomar Observatory, although he didn't live to see it complete. If you go down to San Diego County and visit the big 200-inch down there, as you walk in the dome, you'll see a statue, the head of the bust of George L. Hale. That telescope is called the Hale Telescope in honor of George. So he founded the 3 largest observatories in the world in his lifetime. He also founded an organization called the National Research Council in Washington, D.C. during World War I to help the world in the world war effort to defeat the Germans. He is responsible for a lot of the really fine architecture you see in the city of Pasadena, the City Hall, the Convention Center, Civic Center, all that library, all that old architecture, even on the planning commission, the city of Pasadena. He is the founder of the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena. And the last thing he did is he had a good buddy named Henry Huntington, who he convinced to give the garden to the library and trust the general public that you can go visit today. George Hale did all that between the age of 20, about 20 years old, and the time of his death when he died at 69. But about 15 of those years, he was incapacitated with mental condition. He couldn't do any of that. So basically, take all those years, which is what, 50 years, shrink about 15 off of it. He did everything I told you to get in that 35-year period. More than most people can do in 3 lifetimes. He had a condition that probably today we call schizophrenia. In 1914, he was on his way to Egypt, and he was staying at a hotel in the French Riviera, and a little elf appeared to him. And he talked to the elf, and the elf would talk back to him, and the elf would live the rest of his life. He had a number of nervous breakdowns. He was in a sanitarium called Las Encinas, which is still in Pasadena. And why that happened, nobody knows. He was a high-strung guy, but I have a theory. Being here, Just like Hunter H does, it discovered that we weren't the only galaxy in the universe. It discovered that the universe was expanding. This telescope did the next thing, the next step from what Copernicus did. Copernicus showed us that the Earth that we live on is not at the center of things. Prior to Copernicus, we thought the Earth was the center of our solar system and the sun went around us. But Copernicus showed us otherwise. So did Galileo. And they got in a lot of trouble with an institution called the Catholic Church. But they survived. Well, as human beings, since we were demoted from the center of the solar system, we figured we must be at the center of some place, maybe the universe, or our galaxy, the Milky Way. So until 1913 or 1914, we believed that, sort of. When an astronomer named Harlow Shapley, who was on the staff here, used this telescope to measure the distance to a particular kind of object, which you're going to see tonight, called the globular cluster. And he triangulated that, and he realized we're not at the center part of the Milky Way galaxy, which is this big bulge on a piece of flat disk. We're 25,000 light years out in a spiral orbit. We live in the suburbs. That was approved with this telescope. But the telescope was not powerful enough to say that we were one of many galaxies. That had to wait until the 100-inch came online. So this telescope showed us where we reside in the Milky Way galaxy, in a nice, safe place, but it couldn't tell us that we were the entire universe, that we were just one of many galaxies. It's a good thing that we don't live at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, because maybe we know what's at the center of our big galaxy. It's a real spooky thing. All black. There's a big black hole in the center of the Milky Way that weighs 3 million times as much as the sun weighs. And anything that gets close to it, we have to eat it. Fortunately, we live a long way away from it, so we're going to see it.
For now.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you the Google News stuff later. Because there's a downside to this story, too. Anyway, I didn't turn the dragon down. Let me turn the dragon down, because Mars just went out of the eyepiece there. And then we're going to go up and start looking at the planet, the red planet.